The ACC announced this last week that there would be unequal revenue sharing based on performance starting in the 2024-2025 academic calendar season. This might seem like good news on its face, but we're going to talk about why the ACC is in serious trouble and why we still think the major players in this conference are looking to leave. We've also got a bit of an idea on when that might happen, so stay tuned and we'll talk about it. Let's jump right into things. We've spoken with you all a ton on why Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Miami, and others are looking to leave the ACC. The biggest issue among all issues is that revenue gap disparity that we have talked about an absolute ton. Commissioner Phillips addressed this, has talked about this through spring meetings, through different things that have gone on. But that revenue gap of, like AD Alford has talked about $30 million with our peers is a huge, huge difference. There's also just the overall marketing of the conference, the horrible media deal that we've got right now, pretty awful officiating, which we've talked about here on this channel a ton, and then also how the non-tobacco road teams, specifically Florida State, Clemson, Miami, others, feel like they don't get the fair end of the shake with most decisions that are made. Pretty bad favoritism that's shown towards the Carolina schools. But coming out of ACC meetings, we got wind that this would be proposed. We let our Discord members know that it was coming, the unequal revenue sharing based on performance, and we dropped that news, and it happened exactly like we said it would. If you haven't joined that Discord, there is a link in the description that you can join for free. Here's what the unequal revenue sharing that's being worked on and will eventually be agreed to means. Teams who perform at a championship level in revenue-generating sports will receive a larger percent of the payout for that year. For example, when the playoff expands next year, if Florida State and Clemson make that 12-team playoff, instead of the ACC evenly distributing that money throughout the conference, the Noles and the Tigers will get a much larger portion of it. Or, if teams make the NCAA tournament in hoops, they'll take home a larger portion of those payouts and be rewarded as well. On its face, this seems like a good thing. It seems like this would be fair, this would appease people, you are rewarded based on what you earn. Seems like a good thing, right? And in maybe some ways it is. But overall, it's not a good thing one bit. I'm going to tell you why as soon as we show some love to our friends over at the Sheepdog Corporation. Now listen, we do an ad on every single video, and I know a lot of times you guys skip through them. This time, don't. Check us out. The Sheepdog Corporation is a nonprofit that was founded by active and former military members. The goal is to break down stigmas that exist in the military community around mental health. They provide life-saving services and treatment to vets, active military, first responders, and others. I personally contribute monthly to them, and I would encourage you to consider making a one-time or monthly contribution to them. I've included a link in the description, but if you want to give back this Memorial Day, there's no better way than by providing support to the Sheepdog Corporation. They're doing phenomenal work. I appreciate them for their partnership. I'm glad to give back monthly to them, and I would encourage you, if you want to support those that support not only the channel, but are also supporting our vets, active military, first responders, that you consider contributing to the Sheepdog Corporation. Okay, want to know why this isn't a viable option for the major players in this conference? It essentially just puts a Band-Aid on a broken arm, for lack of a better cliche. Estimates say that this could be worth roughly about $10 million in additional revenue if a team was to make the playoff, which, yes, sounds great. You get what you earn. But let's say that Alabama and UGA make their respective playoffs in the same year. I would have used Florida in that example, but they're a dead program and unlikely to ever be truly relevant again. So let's talk about Alabama and Georgia. They're getting an even revenue share from the SEC, somewhere between $5 and $6 million. So FSU's unequal revenue sharing in this model maybe nets them an additional few million dollars compared to their peers. Essentially nothing. When you look at what $4 or $5 million does on the grand scheme of things, grand relation to everything else, it's very little and doesn't really move the needle at all. The other issue with this, it doesn't touch the media portion one bit, which is what Florida State has continued to fight for. Florida State gets more eyes on its football program than any other program in the ACC, And that even includes the years where they're down. The last several years where Florida State, until 2022, wasn't super competitive. I've been told that they're going to continue to fight for this. I'm just not very confident in it ever getting done. Florida State is the biggest brand, and from the time they've been in the conference, they've been the most successful brand in the ACC from a football perspective. Yet the ACC is just not doing what they need to do to make Florida State happy. And it's not just about the Seminoles, it's about Clemson and UNC and Miami as well. The major brands are doing so much more for the ACC than the ACC is doing for them. With this news this week, several think that the conference realignment rumors or the Magnificent Seven rumors have been put to rest. But I've spoken with some folks close to a couple of the programs, and I can tell you, we are far from that. And the conversations around their teams potentially leaving the conference truly never come to an end. They are always in the forefront of people's minds. I've been asked several times about timelines on these situations. When might some of these teams start to break away? I'll be very transparent. As far as an announcement, I don't really have any idea. I know that certain people seem to think that there's something special around the mid-August timeframe and that you could kind of hear something or some kind of announcement then. I haven't been told that. I know that, again, that's a popular theory, and I'd love if that was the case. But I don't really have anything to back that up, and nobody that I've spoken with has really kind of given any credence to that number or any kind of special, we think that's a real possibility. But as far as when FSU and others might actually be out of this conference, I'd put it under 5 years based on the conversations that I've had. I will be surprised if Florida State and Clemson are members of the ACC to start the 2027 football season. I do not expect them to be here for the 2028 seasons and beyond. So you're looking at around 5 years or less. I've spoken with others close to the situation who have both covered and been in some of the meetings, and they think this is a pretty decent timeline for things as well. Anytime that you make a huge move and when Florida State, Clemson, and potentially others work to disband or dissolve the conference, that is going to be met with legal challenges, and that assumes a big risk because you never know what happens in a court of law. But as time passes, that risk diminishes and your need to make a change increases. 2 years of $30 million gaps in revenue between you and your peers may not be the worst thing in the world. It's not great, but once you get up to 5, 6, 7 years and you're looking at $150 million between you and your peer over the last half of a decade, at that point, I don't know that Florida State and Clemson could continue to wait it out and hope that things get better. And that's kind of where I land on that 4 to 5 year time frame. Based on the folks that I've chatted with, it seems to be the time frame that makes the most sense. Now, when does an announcement come? Not sure. When is your favorite football team going to get out of this conference? I'd say within the next 5 years. All in all, what seemed like a win for Florida State and the other powers in this conference is really just another mirage. It's another smokescreen from the conference, and it's hoping to, again, put a Band-Aid on top of a broken arm. And it's another sign that the powers in the ACC need to get out. Want to know how Florida State, Clemson, Miami, UNC, and others can leave? We've done several videos on conference realignment. If you have missed those, you can watch all of them by clicking the link right here to check them out. Again, appreciate the Sheepdog Corporation. If you want to give back on this Memorial Day, I would encourage you to click the link in the description to learn more about them. Thanks as always, and go Noles.